welcome to our webinar today on the future of Caribbean law, the challenges, growth, and harnessing AI. My name is Scott Wiles. I am the Director of Caribbean Markets here at LexisNexis. I appreciate that it's quite early for some of you, so thank you very much for making the time to join us. We're anticipating an engaging conversation around some of those challenges facing Caribbean attorneys, the impact of some of the various technologies that are creeping into the market, or maybe not creeping, but making themselves very apparent. Just for context, it is 2 o'clock in the afternoon here in London. It's 21 degrees centigrade, and that is positively balmy. So it doesn't get much warmer than this. So I certainly don't feel quite as jealous of you guys in the Caribbean. I personally have been at LexisNexis for 4 years now, working with the Caribbean market. I've got 15 years experience working around professional services markets for our parent company, RELX. And I think over the last 4 years, I've gone from probably a somewhat ignorant view of the Caribbean legal market as I knew it, to probably appreciating some of the differences with the respective jurisdictions and some of the nuance and challenges there as well. My role is to moderate today, so I will introduce the speakers in a moment, and I will ask a few questions to prompt that conversation. But in addition, you will see, I think, to the right-hand side of your console, the opportunity to ask questions as well. So there's both a chat and a Q&A on the right-hand side. So if you do have anything that you specifically would like addressing or to comment on, then please do feel free to put that in there. We've got some people behind the scenes actually managing that and looking at that for us. Is there anything else to mention? I don't know. I think, and so what I'll do now is I'll just introduce our illustrious speakers. So we have got in no particular order, we have got Rhyan Elliott. So Rhyan is a senior associate at Higgs & Johnson, specialising in litigation, insolvency and corporate restructuring, with extensive experience in civil and commercial litigation, particularly in complex cross-border disputes. Welcome, Rhyan. We have got Ebrahim Lakhi, who is an attorney at law at Stephen Walcott & Co, with a focus on various civil law aspects, including labour and environmental law. Currently pursuing a PhD in mediation and conflict resolution, and considers the World Bank one of his clients in terms of advisory on legal matters. And we have Maurisha Robinson. So Maurisha is a co-founder and managing partner at MORTON Robinson LP, excelling in corporate and intellectual property law and providing comprehensive legal services, including real estate transactions and immigration advice. And in addition to our 3 illustrious speakers, I also have Mark Bissett on the call. Mark is my stooge, my plant and an account director for LexisNexis in the Caribbean market. Mark spent the last 5 years traveling throughout the Caribbean, meeting attorneys and businesses out there, and assures me that his frequent visits have got nothing to do with the beaches, the weather, or his newfound love of scuba diving. But he does have 20 years of experience with LexisNexis, in addition to those 5 years spent in the Caribbean markets. So hopefully, if anything comes up from a Lexis perspective, he is our man to answer it. So the first question that I have, and I'm going to direct this to Maurisha initially, is what do you see the biggest challenges facing Caribbean law firms today?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Well, I'll start because one of the major challenges that I had this morning was technology. We have a major issue with steady internet provision. And so that is always a challenge for us, especially when since COVID, we've moved a lot of some of our litigation hearings to virtual hearings, and speed mainly from a small firm's perspective. That in and of itself presents its own challenges, being that we are small. One of the major issues we find as a law firm operating, I saw someone asking a question about jurisdiction. We're based in St. Kitts and Nevis, and Morton Robinson, our main office, is over on Nevis, which is a smaller island. Now, in terms of major challenges, as a small firm, we want to keep up with the larger firms as well as keep up on the global stage. And with that being said, for us, it matters not whether you are a law firm of 3 to 5 lawyers, 10 to 15 lawyers, or fee requirements in the sense of licenses, memberships, all of that. That remains the same for us. We are not given a discount on anything. And so we're always trying to say, okay, we have to choose what areas we go into. And for our firm, for instance, we're involved mainly in corporate and civil litigation, and we do a lot of transactional matters. But on the same time, on the same realm, the challenge for us is to keeping on top of our work and balancing our involvement in those activities, and it can be quite tedious for us. The other thing is we are a firm of only 3 lawyers, and for it to be economically feasible, we have to take on a minimum number of matters. But that, on the flip side, it means, do we have enough manpower to produce effectively and efficient service? That is a running concern for us. We try our best to keep on top of things, but what we've found that has worked for us is that, our firm, we classify it mainly as a boutique firm. And so most of our clients, especially the area in which I'm involved in terms of advising high net worth individuals, those wanting to buy a second home on Nevis, I've found personally that having a personal relationship with the clients helps a lot to overcome some of the challenges. And so if I'm not able to meet a timeline, I go back to one of the basic principles of honesty is the best policy. You just be forthcoming and say, look, we had this week. I will get to that. I'm not ignoring you. We will do this, and I provide, I'm saying, is it urgent? I have to really ask questions. You have to get to know your clients a lot more to know how you interact with that client. Some clients are more demanding than others. Others are more understanding, and I find that helps somewhat.
Somewhat ironically, throughout your response, you had some connectivity issues, although I think hopefully we were able to follow the crux of your response, which was really useful. I thought actually so someone did ask a question, where are the attendees or the speakers from, and that, yes, I should have introduced that. Rhyan practices in the Bahamas, Ebrahim in Barbados, and Maurisha, as she said, is St. Kitts. I thought it might be useful just to pivot quickly off the back of that, because Rhyan, in your experience in a larger firm, would you agree that those are the challenges that you see within Higgs, or would you go elsewhere with that response?
I would agree with quite a lot that Maurisha has said. Certainly, it is always a challenge to sort of balance the many matters that we have on a day-to-day basis, and also to manage client expectations. But from my perspective, I find that there's a general overarching theme that really poses the most significant challenge for us at Higgs & Johnson and in the Bahamas, which is really providing timely, high quality, efficient, and tailored legal services to our clients who are increasingly sophisticated and international, and to really meet their expectations, which quite often involve providing our legal services at a cost that will be competitive internationally, and also that will represent a significant value to our clients. They also require, I find, tailored legal services that provide a personalized representation that truly understands their needs. And that's something that Maurisha also touched on. But in my view, these challenges are really in our considering and trying to meet these challenges. I find that integrating technology is a real asset, and it's something that we are leveraging certainly in our practice. For example, creating efficiencies in the way that we work by effectively and appropriately implementing technology, whether it's AI or whether it's some of the legal services that we get from LexisNexis, but essentially utilizing all of our resources in a way that truly adds value to our clients, and that allows us to introduce efficiencies that ultimately bring the cost of providing the high quality legal services that we aim to provide. We have to provide and to try to achieve a synergy between efficiencies and utilizing technology, but also with providing a personalized service. And I think that, achieving that balance is one of the greatest challenges that we face in the Bahamas. And I think it's probably the same with many other Caribbean practitioners.
Okay. Thank you for that, Ryan. And Ebrahim, how would you say a firm in the Caribbean such as yours stays not only relevant but truly competitive against the backdrop of what Ryan and Maurisha have just talked about?
Luck and prayers. Everything that my colleagues have said is entirely correct, and it's about sorry, I got a pop up here.
We've got a poll up there for everyone. Sorry, that the timing was probably slightly off on that as Ebrahim was about to tell us. I don't know if anyone wants to just have a look at that poll whilst you continue to respond, Ebrahim.
Sure. So it's about staying relevant, as you mentioned, and trying things that work, because not everything can be painted with a broad brush. It's upgrading your technology that can to technology that suits you, both your budget and what your people know, because a lot of times people spend a lot of money. I mean, sometimes we spent tens of thousands of dollars on software that nobody ended up using, became obsolete. So it's knowing, first of all, knowing what you need to do, knowing your limitations. Don't oversell yourself. Don't try to do things that you can't practically do. And ensuring that you optimize what you do best. Keep doing what you're doing and optimize it. And technology cannot be avoided. You must embrace the technology, bring the technology in, bring the resources in, and always get the client's feedback as well too. Because sometimes often you have clients that are not technologically savvy as well too. So you need to make sure that you are engaged with what you're doing, know what you're doing first of all. Only do what you know that you're going to do. Bring in technology that suits and complements you and works for you, and always engage and liaise with the client, because one, they may not be so comfortable with technology, or two, they may want a human touch to it, or three, sometimes technology might just have a little bit of a problem and they might not receive the message. So I started off by saying luck and prayer, but there's no easy formula. You always keep your finger close to the pulse, know what you're doing in your practice, and embrace as much technology as you can, knowing the strengths and weaknesses.
Perfect. Thank you, Ebrahim. And I think that gives us a really rounded view on some of those points. But just to build it out further, Mark, given your experience across multiple jurisdictions, not just the Caribbean, but across obviously many of those, would you say that that's a fairly comprehensive view, or are there other things creeping into that as well?
I think the constant thread of juggling time, especially I deal with smaller end and larger ends of the market across all the jurisdictions, and I think it's interesting to see how client demand is a consistent thread, and as you see, there's varying ways of managing it, from like having stronger personal relationships with your clients to excelling and competing globally, which obviously is the opposite sides of the same coin. I think one of the interesting developments that I've seen over the past few months, especially on the last trip I was away, was an increasing instance of, and I'm sure all the attorneys here have experienced it one time or another, of clients telling them how to do their job. and I can think of two specific instances from my last trip, one in the Cayman Islands and one in Bermuda, where attorneys are now experiencing where somebody's come to them with a matter and then gone, oh, and I found these cases that prove my argument. So therefore, Mr. Attorney, can you use those and justify charging me a larger fee, or clearly I'm going to win now. And so managing client expectation, because everybody's become a lawyer with the internet and everybody's got an idea. And I think AI maybe we're spending a lot of time educating attorneys, and as an industry we're moving towards greater and cautious use of AI, but how do we bring the public along with that, I think can be a bit of a challenge. So I think, because your customers are now telling you how to do your jobs, I'm not sure if you experience this, or is the frequency increasing, or...
So Maurisha, I can see you most emphatically nodding there. So let me build on that question slightly to say what's your approach then against the backdrop of increasing client expectation and let's call it client education, should we say? What impact is that having on considerations to fee structure or how you charge your clients?
Well, for one, I'll say this. I'll just give you, in the Caribbean or here, in St. Kitts and Nevis, we refer to those clients as tamarind tree lawyers. And we do have a lot of them, and it's quite funny. It's quite hilarious. Just yesterday, actually, had to deal with one who tried to tell me how a personal injury matter should be handled, and so I had to call him in, and explain that. Explain exactly how the law works. It's not how you think it should work, but this is how it works. But in terms of your question centered on how does that relate when it comes to fees and all of that. Now, from a small, and this is one thing I'm happy you brought it to my attention, but invoice settlement and retainer agreements for law firms, that's always a challenge for us. So when they see small, they think that the fee should also be small, regardless of the type of service being offered. And in some respects, we have some clients will literally tell us how much they think we should be charging them. And we have to, thankfully, we have a scale of fees that the Bar Association puts out. It's revised every now and then. But in our defense, and in order to justify what we are to charge and what they're to pay, we usually refer them to the Bar Association scale of fees, which is the minimum. And we remind them this is the minimum we are allowed to charge. And so even with that minimum, they sometimes think it's not worth it, when it comes to real estate transactions, for instance, and dealing with North American clients. Apparently, to do our real estate transaction, the fees involved, it's not significant. It's very minimal. But in the Caribbean, or in the case of St. Kitts and Nevis, there's a percentage, there's a scale. So, and some of them can't wrap their minds around that, especially when it's dealing with properties over $1 million. They immediately think, why are we paying so much in fees? So how we then justify it, or we try to explain it to them and show them that we're not ripping them off. In the US, property taxes are outrageous. Whereas in St. Kitts and Nevis, $1 million property, their annual property tax is insignificant to them. And so they'll probably spend $2,000 US annually or something. So when I explain that to them, they then say, oh, so they realize, you pay that upfront fee for the transaction, but in the end, over time, you realize, it's actually worth it to have a property here because property taxes are not expensive. There are other things, that that they look at the benefits. The other way in which we've had to, when it comes to charging, sometimes, we're small, we're in the community, everybody knows us. We sometimes we invoice our clients, we do some of the work, but then when they're to pay the balance, we have an issue, and sometimes, unfortunately, we have to take them to court to get paid.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's all very useful. And I think pivoting now to a bit more around looking forward. Ebrahim, what do you see as being the sort of top trends that are likely to impact let's call it the Caribbean market or Caribbean market in the next 5 years? What's on the horizon from your perspective?
Both positive and negative. There is going to be the influx of AI, generally speaking. I mean, the CCJ has also embraced this in their recent practice direction, which essentially allows you to use AI for submissions, but not for anything that requires a point of view or requires evidence to be taken, generally speaking. And lots of government entities, for example, adopt technology, which they'll then move towards AI in terms of processing information, whether it's the registries, whether it's labor department, whether it's the land registry, etc. So AI is definitely going to find its way into the Caribbean. Now, what that is probably going to do is going to make work more efficient and more predictable. But at the other end, the Caribbean suffers from bureaucracy. And it's going to make things tedious as well, because when there's a problem, it's hard to get it fixed. And it's potentially, in Barbados' case, for example, there have been several allegations of leaks from our government entities, which will make it difficult for you to kind of properly manage a couple of things. So 5 years is a very short time for the Caribbean, because it takes a while for outside trends to come down. For example, people say when the US sneezes, it comes onto our faces, right? So, I mean, it's very much alive. It's going to come to us. But it's going to take us some time to adopt it. So in 5 years' time, we're going to be seeing AI. But I think that we're probably going to be adjusting to AI, getting people to come to the mentality of using AI and dealing with the teething problems of AI, because with that comes data protection, discrimination, a whole user errors, and then obviously job security as well, and fear of losing markets, and then obviously political twines involved in saving jobs versus AI, etc. So it'll be a very interesting 5 years from now. 5 years from now will be very interesting, and I think that's it.
No, thank you. That's a really thorough response. I think just in our experience, the broader Caribbean has actually adopted AI far more quickly than some of our other segments. So generally embraced it with. I was going to say with open arms, but certainly have embraced it more quickly than some segments, and actually pivots nicely to Ryan. I know you've mentioned that you're using AI in practice. You know, what do you see as some of the biggest advantages it's providing you at the moment?
Certainly, it provides us with the ability to do our work in a more efficient way, and to do it in a way that ultimately benefits the client, because it can reduce some of the costs. But certainly time savings, I find, are definitely, one of the key advantages that we see with the use of AI. I mean, the integration of technology generally has improved our operations and provided efficiencies. But, using AI, particularly as we do now with Lexis, sometimes even with ChatGPT and other AI models, it allows us to analyze cases. It allows us to analyze some of the commentary that we may need to review and to research in order to prepare opinions. It allows us to prepare drafts a lot more quickly. It allows us to engage with our clients and to provide more timely responses to our clients, I find. So generally, efficiencies, cost efficiencies, and time efficiencies, which ultimately allow us to be more productive.
Perfect. Thank you, Ryan. And Maurisha, I don't know if you've got a different view on that, or if you're in line with Ryan's view.
I am. And again, from a small firm's perspective, I think it can be quite remarkable, the use of AI. I did mention the challenge of keeping on top of everything. And I think with the introduction of AI in the area of legal research, litigation analytics, I think that could be quite useful and that will help us to leverage ourselves against the larger firms, in the sense that we are able to produce more with the help of AI, or on a quicker basis, in terms of we can use it to analyze cases, especially with LexisNexis is on top of that. It helps us with our drafting of basic legal documents, as well as the issue of invoicing and all of that. I can see how that can help. You can have it automated to send clients reminders as to when they're to settle their invoices. It could help us as small firms in terms of properly scheduling our time and our meetings, and all of them. It will no doubt perhaps reduce litigation costs, which would then be somewhat more attractive for some, deal, so to speak. I think it can be quite useful, especially for the smaller firms. The challenge will come in terms of the investment that will be required to have everything on stream.
Great. Thank you, Maurisha. And Ebrahim, on the subject of AI, what do you see as sort of practical steps that a smaller firm in the Caribbean might want to consider when implementing AI?
Look, from a well-rounded perspective, you want to make sure that your AI is from a legitimate source. So, for example, and this is not me touting Lexis's platform, but they do have a very good platform for searching cases based on natural language, which is very important, because sometimes you might not know exactly what you want in a case, but you may articulate a question, and LexisNexis, like a AI, will give you some very relevant answers, and they do some good drafting as well, so that you use it as a starting point, like a top-down approach. Never use a draft entirely as it is drafted. I mean, there was a lawyer 2 years ago. I remember when I was at the UN and we were talking on AI. We brought this case to everyone's attention, and he used ChatGPT to generate cases, and fake cases were generated, and he submitted it, and he was later disbarred. But from a small firm point of view, you should know that your AI is from legitimate sources, because data protection at the back end is very important, because you find that a lot of persons nowadays use AI as a way of attracting people. Whenever there's something good, there's always scams behind it that people try to lure you in. So make sure your AI is from a legitimate source, so you know that it will work. Familiarize yourself with what AI can and cannot do, or align yourself with someone that can do it. For a smaller firm, it might make more sense for you to take a course or two. There are lots of courses online. LexisNexis also offers courses. I always see a barrage of emails where they say, well, let's introduce you to AI. Take advantage of those things, know what AI can do, and then implement the best practical and feasible AI for yourself. Again, LexisNexis offers a very good product when it comes to searching for cases, drafting, etc. But there are others up there that you can use. For example, if you wanted to use for spell checking, there's Grammarly. Zoom, for example, does its own AI when it comes to minutes. Google has its own Gemini. But again, back to the first point, Google data protection is very dodgy. Don't know if you've heard about Apple and Siri and the lawsuit about potential spying issues and data breaches. So stick with those that you know and that you're comfortable with, and implement those that can work. And look for those that can offer an encompassing package as well. Again, like LexisNexis, so that you can gain productivity in your law firm.
Thank you. And Ebrahim, I joked and said Mark was my stooge on the call, but your check's in the post. Thank you for the name drops on that. So I thought this might be a good opportunity to actually just, I'm going to endeavour to do a poll now with everyone. So hopefully this works, which is simply what type of task are you currently using AI for? Just to get a feel for those people on the call and see where we're typically spending our time. Hopefully that poll is yeah, I can see the responses coming in now. So if we stick with this theme for now, Ryan, where would you say you're spending most of your time using AI at the moment, based on, well, either based on these options or anything else that you might have noticed through your use of AI?
Right. So while we are embracing AI and looking to adopt it more extensively in the future, presently the full extent of my AI is really within LexisNexis and other legal research tools for my legal research initial drafting, as well as summarizing cases and legal commentary. But that being said, I fully anticipate that our use and adoption and reliance upon AI will probably become more extensive in the next 5 years or even before, as we begin to utilize more bespoke AI solutions that may be, for example, tailored for our firm. And I think that is something that we will probably see coming down the pipeline sooner rather than later, where firms and other legal organizations may have bespoke AI tools that are used and that are designed for the organization to create bespoke efficiencies within that organization. Right now it's being used, I think, for sort of research to help us cut through the large volume of material that we quite often have to go through in order to provide opinions and some of the other services that we give to our clients. But I fully anticipate that it will be more widespread in the near future. For example, to provide, and it's one of the questions I see in the chat, to provide more personalized solutions to our clients. I fully anticipate that we will have generative solutions that will draw on our expertise and our internal databases that will provide additional solutions for our clients. I think that although we have access to sort of proprietary legal databases such as Lexis, I also see us opening up our sort of databases to our clients through the learning that we might use through generative AI to provide advice and solutions to them. But for now, for my part, it's limited to research and assisting us in creating efficiencies within our organization and in our legal work.
Right. And Mark, with your experience, you mentioned earlier dealing with clients of different scale and size on your visits. How would you say the adoption and or usage is different by firm size? I appreciate that's a very broad question, but
it's not actually. I was reflecting on that just now. It's like, so I've got my customers sit at all ends of the market, and I've seen adoption and rejection at every size. So what I'm finding fascinating is it doesn't seem to be much correlation. I would say large law and global law are probably the slowest adopters, and I think that's down to bureaucracy. Some of the larger firms have, some of the big firms have got working parties that have set up, and I think they've made the mistake of lumping AI into AI, the whole thing, as opposed to sub-segmenting it and going, do we need an AI which is a chatbot on the front of our service or in front of our website, or do we need a research AI? Do we need a drafting tool? Because it's all been lumped together. They're literally stood still. And I think in some of the jurisdictions, everybody's waiting for the big firms to make a move. And what I'm seeing is at the kind of mid and smaller end of the market, you're seeing firms jump and really get ahead of that. And I think the challenge is going to come when AI is outstripping adoption. So if we look at, say, I'm not sure everybody's seen, Lexis got a new version of AI coming out, which has greater personalization in it, has document vaults, and we're just getting over the hump of like, can we use the first one? Yet we're already on to the second one. And that's only, 18 months down the line? So, and I think attorneys who I think maybe are kind of playing around with ChatGPT and like looking at some of the kind of the free options out there, think they're ahead of the curve, and they're probably behind it, I would say. And further behind it are some of the big firms who may have, I think of a big firm that adopted Harvey. They thought it'd be magic, and they don't use it for any legal work. They use it for internal bit of chat, get it to draft the email, odd email, things like that. And if you look at some of the AI tools that are out there now, already Protege, the new ones coming out from us, will literally draft you a full contract end to end and pull a timeline out of a document. And for a small firm who's going against the larger firm, that could be super powerful. So I think it's really important that the larger firms start to look at AI. Otherwise, they, for want of a better phrase, they're going to fall behind the smaller end of the market. So I think it's a great leveler, and it allows firms at different ends of the market to really compete, which I think is, from Lexis's perspective, is great. From a rule of law perspective, is fantastic, and from a client perspective, is going to be exciting. There then lies the challenge of, if we're doing things faster, better, and cheaper, our customers going to expect that. So I think that's my insight. If that does that answer the question?
It does, yeah. And I think if I come to Maurisha now, then on the the smaller end of the size of firm, what do you see some of the big challenges for firms of your size then in adopting AI?
I think the major challenge for us will be the investment, the startup investment. But we have to, I just think as a small firm, we have to, going on from what Ebrahim said, we have to choose wisely. And we have to choose what works for us. AI, or generative AI, as we know, it's still in check mode at the moment. And so against that background, we just have to analyze and figure out what aspects or what areas of AI will be most useful in our firm. And immediately for us, I highlighted it. I've said that, for us, I think once we use the tools effectively, we can compete against the bigger firms. So once we have our scheduling down, we have our invoicing set up through AI, assistance with drafting, I think it could be quite beneficial for the small firms. Once we put in the work, we have to put in the training for it and all of that. I think it could be quite useful.
Perfect.
But the challenge will be to balance that against the economics of it.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I've just noticed one of the questions in here, which I'll just pick up, which is from Nicholas Persab, which is, are the speakers referring to a specific AI created for their firms or Lexis AI? I think I'll answer on behalf of everyone, which is it's a bit of a mix actually here. So I think we're talking about AI more generally. Obviously, there's been some specific reference to the Lexis offering. However, to be clear, this is more of a broad conversation around AI in the Caribbean market as opposed to a specific solution, if that makes sense. And Ebrahim, in terms of the rate of change that Mark referenced previously, how do you intend to stay ahead of that curve, if you will?
I was a little distracted by answering one of the questions, to be honest. Mark, can you just repeat that quickly so that I could?
Yeah. So, I mean, my experience of the market is very much that customers. I think the kind of the point of contention was the legal market itself is change resistant. AI has been picked, and those that are adopting AI quickly are using a bit of ChatGPT, or maybe looking at some of the other models that may summarize, may summarize conversations, things like that. Are really thinking that they are ahead of technology or with it. And as I said, we're already on persona-based AIs that you can put document vaults that will give you 500 documents that you can query. drafting timelines from things, and it's so far ahead of just using AI as like a giant search engine, or would you mind just summarizing what happened in our conversation, that I think there is a real danger of the market falling, that technology outstripping the pace that the market can stand. So that was really my thought that Scott was talking about.
Yeah, so change has always been reluctantly embraced by people. I mean, it took a good while for people to accept that the world was wrong. So the factor in people embracing technology, I think, is not so long compared to how long it took people in the past, just being facetious. That being said, though, there is a real resistance to AI and technology, both in terms of, for example, gentrification, or for example, the fact that there's a lot of persons that practice in the profession that may be older or may have older counterparts that make decisions. And there's a general reluctance towards embracing technology and a distrust of technology and AI, because everyone lumps AI as everything IT related, which is not the case. So once you're able to start making changes in that reluctance and you allow people to embrace AI, they need to constantly embrace the fact that AI and technology, mind you, are constantly changing, and you can't stick in a particular position and expect that to be the end all, because AI is developing at a rapid pace. I do think that is why it is very important for persons to become familiarized with what AI is about. Do a course on technology, do a IT course, do something online, figure out what IT is, what AI is, and that will allow you to embrace the reality that you need to be constantly in it. Just like the lottery, you need to be in it to win it, right? So you need to constantly be into AI in order to figure out the advancements, because AI a couple of years ago did not deserve the attention that it is getting right now. It was a very fledgling baby and capable of impressing every now and then, but not really being fully able to stand on its own feet. And AI right now can stand on its own feet, and millions and billions of dollars are being poured into AI. And the change that persons are making towards AI nowadays is out of necessity, but also they need to make this change. And I think education is critical in allowing persons to know that first they must change and they must keep on top. Because if you stay with a particular segment of AI, for example, becomes obsolete, then you're not doing yourself a favor but a disfavor.
Great. Thank you for that. Thank you for that view. Rhyan, pivoting to you now, we've heard a lot about rate of change, pace of change, and how some of the larger firms maybe have some additional blockers with regard to that. So I'd love to get your view on this, working for a larger firm. What you see some of the biggest challenges to AI adoption being?
I think that generally change is something that people are resistant to, which I think all of the panelists have expressed. But we are adaptive, and we have to remain adaptive. And just touching on the point that I made at the very beginning, as practitioners, we have to meet our clients' expectations. And although people may resist change, the organizations may need to adapt and to change in order to embrace this technology and this AI. Ultimately, I think it's something that our clients will expect, and we have to meet their expectations, which include providing the services that they're accustomed to, but more efficiently and at a better cost efficiency. But we have a lot that we can leverage, I think, in order to develop these solutions. And I think that at the end of the day, we have to look at it as an advantage, particularly for a large firm. For example, leveraging our own intellectual property, our own expertise that we can use, and we can develop our own tools and our own models that we can effectively monetize, that we can provide for the benefit of our clients. And so, although I think there are challenges in terms of change and getting people to embrace the change, ultimately it will benefit our clients. And so it's something that I think will ultimately be looked at quite favorably within our segment of the market. And it's something that we can utilize and embrace to really take our business model and to take the services that we offer to the next level and moving into the future.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. I'm just referring to one of the polls that we did earlier, which was around the biggest challenge facing Caribbean law firms. And I think we've touched on client expectation and market demands a little bit throughout the course of this. So the next one on there, which I thought we've not really discussed, I don't think, is around talent retention and brain drain. I think is something that probably, in my experience, gets discussed quite a bit. So, Maurisha, I don't know if you've got a view on that as a challenge facing Caribbean law firms, so talent retention and brain drain.
That will always be a feature of an issue for law firms in the Caribbean to an extent. You have lawyers, especially in the smaller jurisdiction, you have a lot of sole practitioners. And so if you are building out a law firm, for instance, you have the challenge of not finding good, skilled lawyers who are willing to work with a smaller firm and to develop their career from then. We've seen a trend where lawyers are coming out of law school and they're just going to set up shop, which, that in and of itself is a challenge. But from our perspective, what we've done so far, it has been challenging, but we've tried to do it. We've engaged with summer interns, and that way we've been able to assess the market. Our current associates came to us through our summer internship program. Another way in which we try to retain good talent is we are big on training, continuous training. And so if a workshop presents itself, a conference, we encourage our staff, we support them in terms of getting additional training, attending networking sessions and all of that. And I think those are some of the things you have to consider when you're trying to compete with the larger firms and to retain top skill and talent at your practice. You really have to be careful about it.
Great, thank you, Maurisha. So we've got we're nearing the end of the session. I'd just like to prompt people, if there are any questions that you'd like answering by the panel, please do make sure you drop them in the console on the right hand side, so that we can have a go at getting to some of those. Ebrahim, using Maurisha's response there around the talent and brain drain, how do you see access to technology influencing decisions around talent retention in the market moving forwards?
Well, as it relates to talent acquisition, brain drain, turnovers, etc., generally, for smaller law practices, it's difficult for you to gain the monies to keep a suitably qualified person with you, because in the legal profession, especially for the smaller firms or sole practitioners, money is not always coming. You might have some good months, and then you might have some very dry months, and salaries are a monthly commitment. So coming up with an interesting way of compensating can sometimes be useful. For example, inviting persons to have a share of the profits, or a share of the work that they did, for example, offering 10%, 15%, something along those lines, because they're not partners, they're associates. Depending on how much base salary you offer them, that can sometimes help keep talent with you in the general sense. But as it relates to AI, I can't really see AI by itself causing a problem in that regard, but it might offer a solution, because the younger generation are more au fait with technology and AI. You can learn a lot by just sitting around the campus, being completely neutral, not looking like a stalker, just sitting around in the campus and hearing conversations, and it drives you forward. So what I'm saying here is that if you poise yourself to hire persons that are not only qualified in law but have a good grasp of technology, that can actually keep you grounded for future potential expansion. And as it relates to keeping them with you, you have to be creative. And AI is not going to help you here. Be creative in keeping them with you and incentivizing them to stay with you. And if they leave you, brain drain is a very horrible thing because lawyers have commitments. Sometimes it takes years for cases to be settled, personal injury, for example. And if you have a turnover of lawyers always coming, you don't settle those matters, and then you can't really cash in on those matters. And then on the back end, you have clients complaining that the legal system is a farce. All lawyers are together, they're banded together, and it just adds fuel to the flames. In that regard, try to hire talent that is not only legal minded but has AI, and try to come up with ways to compensate them that is suitable for both of you.
Thank you so much, Ebrahim. So I'm going to defer back to our team behind the scenes to see if any questions. I know a couple of questions have been answered already. Do we have any other questions that have come in behind the scenes as we do near the top of the hour? I don't know. I'm going to assume that silence means no, as opposed to their technology not working. So I thought with the last few minutes, unless anything comes in now, I will ask if we've got any parting thoughts based on the conversations that we've had. Ryan, anything from you based on this conversation? Anything that you'd like to add to any of the previous responses, or anything additional?
Nothing in particular, but to just watch this space. I think that the technology is continuing to evolve. I think as a region, we would do well to really embrace the technology. And I think that there is a massive opportunity for us to really revolutionize the way that we do business and to ensure that our region remains a viable player on the world stage. And I think, law firms within the region can get ahead of this and can really utilize the specialist expertise that we have within our jurisdictions and to leverage our knowledge and our experience to really build out the AI infrastructure within our own regions and to ultimately use it for the benefit of our clients. So watch this space, and I think that it's only going to be adopted further and more deeply within our region.
Perfect. Given that we don't have any other questions, I'm just going to give one last chance to Ebrahim and Maurisha if there's anything that you want to add to either any of the responses previous or anything additional. Ebrahim, I'll go to you first.
Sure. So this is going to be a part of a closing remark as well. It's very nice to be another pop-up here. It's very to be invited here and to be speaking with many colleagues, some of whom would be senior to me. As it relates to AI, this is, I believe, it's necessary to have multiple conversations all the time and just not a one-off. Because today, I think this is more of an introduction to AI. But there are pros, there are strengths, there are weaknesses, and there are considerations to be had. For example, there are cases where AI suffers discrimination, for example, in employment, because it's based off of values that you put into it, right? And human beings put those values into it, at least for now. Then they'll have the robot revolution, and God knows who's going to put it in. I'm just kidding. But those data sets can trigger discrimination, and simply because you use an AI product doesn't save you from being responsible. If, for example, you did breach law. Data protection is also important because, like in Barbados, we have the data protection law. Processing of information is important, and jurisdiction is important as well too. So it comes down to selecting a right AI product and a right AI solution for yourself, and having multiple discussions, because not everyone may flag things in the way that need to be flagged. When you have a nice peer-to-peer discussion, or when you have a nice discussion amongst other people, they might bring to your attention that other things are relevant. Other things need to be changed. Other things have changed. And I think we also need to, as practitioners, need to engage with each other and our bar as well, in order to make sure that collectively we understand what AI is and what our roles in AI are, and that we still need to keep our fingers close to the pulse. But AI makes it really easier for us to do things. Just like using a car makes it easier for us to drive from point A to point B. Nobody is going to say we're going to walk from Bridgetown to St. Lucie anymore. We're going to use a car, right? So AI gets us there much quicker and much faster, but we still need to be present.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you, Ebrahim. And Maurisha, any parting thoughts from you?
Well, what I'll say is, and it's the general sentiment being expressed, AI, it's here to stay. You know, we're in that age. It's here to stay. As it is right now, it's still in the check your work mode, so we cannot rely fully on it. I think the view or the takeaway that lawyers should have or they should adopt is that AI is here to stay. It's here to assist us to be more efficient and more effective to serve our clients better. It's not a tool that you're going to just pass off everything to. It still requires that human element that will never go away. It's not here to replace lawyers. It is just here to make our work a little bit more, you know, so we can balance that work, do that work-life balance more effectively. And so I think if we're in a position to invest in it, now is the time to do so. Now is the time to get all the training in. Now is the time to assess the firm to see how AI will fit in to help us with our work output.
Perfect. Thank you, Maurisha, and thank you all of you panelists certainly, but also those people that are that are on the other side of this listening in. I hope you found this useful. We do intend to do more of these, so please do present us any feedback. Please do provide us with that to help shape future sessions and topic areas that we might discuss. As we hit the top of the hour, I will wish you all a good morning in the Caribbean, a good afternoon to those of you elsewhere. And I hope this has been useful, and I hope to speak to you all soon.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, have a great day.